What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the best greatsword and daggers build in Throne and Liberty. At first, this build may seem like just another bruiser. However, thanks to the passive skills like the Vital Force and Cold Warrior, its damage output can be extremely high. And once you fully complete it in the endgame, this setup can reach over 300 skill damage boost and 500 plus heavy attack chance. So by combining our increased damage from the greatsword skills with the increased critical hit and critical damage from the dagger skills, will give us the ability to do insane amount of damage and much more. So let's move over to the gear, and I will split this section into two parts. In the next 30 seconds I will cover the early game gear, so what you want to use until level 50. And then in the second part, we will take a look at the fully completed endgame gear and how it will work. So everyone starts with the green uncommon gear, then at some point switches it out to the blue rare gear, and finally in the endgame, they fully get their epic purple gear. Depending on how fast you level and what specific activities you do, this progression will vary from player to player, but the most important things you need to keep in mind is that wearing green gear while leveling is completely fine. As you progress further into the game, you will gather more gear with additional stats, which will boost your raw damage, which is what you want to focus on. It is also more costly to use traits on them, so just simply keep leveling and slowly transition to blue gear when you find better pieces. The only item useful for the endgame that you want to keep is the special resistance tactical armor. Most of you won't get it because of RNG, but in case if you run into it while leveling, then for sure use it, as it will provide more value than the normal gear. But besides that, just keep switching out for better gear, and focus on the same stats that I will mention for the endgame build. So here we have the endgame build, and you are feel free to click the link in the description to check it out on the website. So for the weapons, I've chosen the greatsword and daggers. The greatsword in particular is the Adentus Barbaric Blade, with traits like the hit, critical hit and heavy attack chance. And for runes on my attack, I have the melee heavy attack chance, on support rune the skill damage resistance, and on defensive rune the max health. Next we have the Licurious Thorny Edge daggers, with traits like the hit, critical hit and heavy attack chance. For resonance trait we got the cooldown speed, and for runes on the attack we have the heavy attack chance, on support the skill damage resistance, and on defense the max health. Next we have the Reaper's Black Mask, with traits like the cooldown speed, ranged evasion and the magic evasion. And for resonance trait we got the max health. Then for cloak we have the Archpriest's Devotion, with mana regen, skill damage resistance and debuff duration. And for resonance trait again we have the max health. Then for chest we have the Miracle of the Mother Nature clothing, with traits like the mana regen, skill damage resistance and debuff duration. And for resonance the max health. Next we have the General's Frenzy gloves, with ranged evasion, attack speed and melee evasion. And as all of the gear has the same resonance, so just keep using the max health for every item. Next we have the Reaper's Interring Pants, with ranged evasion, magic evasion and mana regen. Then we have the General's Charge Boots, with traits like the melee evasion, ranged evasion and move speed. Then for necklace we have the Abyss Conqueror, with traits like the max health, skill damage boost and buff duration. And for runes on the attack we have hit, for defense the max health, and for support the Amitoi health. Next we have the Spectre's Frost Bracers, with the mana regen, skill damage resistance and debuff duration. And for runes on the support we have the skill damage resistance. Then for defense the max health, and for the attack the heavy attack chance. Next we have the Eternal Ring of Dimension, skill damage boost and buff duration. And for runes on the support the Amitoi health, for attack the critical hit, and for defense the max health. Next we have the Transcendent Magic Ring, with traits like the skill damage boost, buff duration and mana regen. And for runes on the support the Amitoi health. Then for attack the critical hit, and for defense the max health. And finally for the last piece we have the Tycon's Bloodless Belt, with max health, skill damage resistance and debuff duration. And for runes on the support we got the skill damage resistance, for defense the max health, and for the attack the hit increase. Next up we have our stat point allocation. As you can see here, the white numbers are the ones that we start from the beginning, then the green numbers are the ones I've allocated manually, and then the blue points are the ones we get from our gear. Overall, we have 50 stat points to distribute however we want, and the gear pieces will give us additional stat points that you cannot change. For our build, the greatsword skills and passives will allow us to reach high amounts of heavy attack chance, and because of this, the strength is one of the most valuable stats. Our first goal in the mid-game is to reach 50 strength. We care mainly about increased damage, so getting 50 strength increases our DPS, and this also synergizes with our vital force passive. Then next we want to reach 50 dexterity, so we can reach a high amount of critical hit and attack speed if you have some rune synergies on your accessories. However, without the rune synergies, you are capped at 49 dexterity, which is still fine as well, because you still have a high critical hit. Then for our third goal, we want to get to 40 perception. This will increase our buff duration, which works on skills, like the Da Vinci's Courage and the Precision Dash. And finally, in the endgame, with the purple gear and respecting, we want to reach 60 strength for added HP and heavy attack chance, then 60 dexterity for increased critical hit, bonus damage and high amounts of attack speed. Then we stay at 40 perception for those buff durations, and lastly we can spend our leftover points into the wisdom until you get around 30. This will increase our mana and maximum weapon damage. Next we have our skills, and for defense we want to get the Black Blade. And then for active skills, the Stunning Blow, Cleaving Moonlight, Guillotine Blade, Fatal Stigma, Dead Blow, Will Breaker and the Da Vinci's Courage. And then for the last 4, I need to explain them a bit further. So as you can see from the gameplay, I don't have the skills icons on my bar. It is because they will change when we select a specific skill specialization, and this will happen for all of these last 4 skills. So Inject Venom will turn into the Lightning Infusion, then Brutal Incision will turn into the Thunderclouds Bombing, then Gaia Crash will turn into the Frost Cleaving, and lastly the Umbral Spirit will turn into the Thunder Spirit. And then for passive skills, we have selected the Shakti Fang, Assassin's Instincts, Wrathful Edge, Vital Force, Cold Warrior, Victor's Morale, Robust Constitution, and Murderous Energy. Next, we will quickly look into the skill priority, and we want to use Quality and Rare Marined Ore to craft Quality and Rare Passive Skill Growth Book, and Active Skill Growth Book as well. I recommend to prioritize getting all of these skills to blue first, before getting them to purple, and then for the rest of your skills, they're not as important, so you can just upgrade them as you progress through the game. So for active skills, the priority is the Valiant Brawl, then Cleaving Moonlight, then Brutal Incision, then Dead Blow, then Gaia Crash, then Da Vinci's Courage, and lastly the Inject Venom. Next we have our skill specialization. So for Valiant Brawl, we get the additional damage boost. Then for Da Vinci's Courage, the duration. Then for Guillotine Blade, the damage collection and cooldown. Then for Brutal Incision, the Thunderclouds Bombing. Then for Umbral Spirit, the Thunder Spirit. Then for Stunning Blow, the cooldown and additional damage boost. Then for Dead Blow, the cooldown. Then for Gaia Crash, the Frost Cleaving and attack speed. Then for Fatal Stigma, the damage. And for Injection Venom, the Lightning Infusion. As you can see here, we have only 10 skills, but in general we have 12. This is because the Cleaving Moonlight skill for some reason was bugged, and you won't see it on the website. But for this skill you still want to select the consecutive use, effect accumulation and attack speed. And lastly in here you won't see the Will Breaker skill, because with the setup we spent 98 out of 100 points, so we have reached the specialization points limit. Next up we have the Weapon Mastery, and here is the setup for the Greatsword. So first off, we get the Skilled Vitality, then on the bottom get everything till the Fierce Attack, and then finally go to the top and get everything until the Firm Will. And then for daggers, we start with the Silent Dash and get everything in the middle until the Sorrow Silence, and then go back to the bottom and get everything starting from melee critical hit to Medaning Excitement. And now for the last and final build part we have the Guardians. These are special transformations that add offensive or defensive buffs or attacks to your character for 30 seconds. And the best 2 choices is the Lady Knight Camarcia. This Guardian lowers your cooldowns while also giving you a damage shield equal to 50% of your maximum mana. This is a strong defensive Guardian whenever you're struggling to survive. Or then on the other hand, we have the Shade Remnant Steno. This Guardian launches projectiles every second that can crit and heavy attack, since our build is stacking a lot of heavy attack chance, so this works perfectly for our playstyle. And now finally we have come to the gameplay part. Greatsword and Dagger revolves around rotating your buffs into your DPS skills. Daggers have higher attack speed, so keeping them out may allow you to get additional attacks in between the skills. So the whole rotation is split into two simple parts, the buff phase and the DPS phase. At the beginning of every fight, we start off in the buff phase by activating the Da Vinci's Courage, Thunder Spirit and the Lightning Infusion. And then after that, the DPS phase starts, where we will do massive amounts of damage by using the Willbreaker, Frost Cleaving, then we will use the Lightning Infusion for the second time. Then afterwards, the Fatal Stigma, then Dead Blow, then the Guillotine Blade, then the Thundercloud's Bombing, then Cleaving Moonlight, and finally the Valiant Brawl. And from here, we just rinse and repeat. The thing you need to keep in mind is to use your buffs whenever they come back up, to ensure the highest possible damage output on your damage skills. Then as well, be sure to have 20 stacks of Thunderclouds before using the Thundercloud's Bombing, and this will maintain the highest damage possible. Also, by having an extremely high attack speed, it will allow us to get our damage off quicker, because it will lower the animation time, which will result in more skill activations per second. And finally, against regular mobs, you can just simply use 1 or 2 buffs, and then the rest of your damage skills. And that's about it. So if you enjoyed this video, click like, subscribe and comment. And if you're interested in more content, then check out my channel. And I will see you in the next one. So take it easy, peace.